Good morning. I'm Laura Young. I hope you're doing well. I want to address a subject this morning that's been brought up to me over the last couple of weeks by several clients. So it's about our levels of consciousness. It's been referred to that this time of crisis is usually a time where we can raise our level of consciousness. But what I want to do this morning is to maybe take some mystery out of that, because some of my clients wanted to talk about it and wanted it explained. So what I will explain here is I'll give you some very simple examples, and just know in the examples that I give that none of us are ever consistently the same level of consciousness. On any given day, I'm going to give you like 4 examples of different levels of consciousness and how it plays out in the world. But in any given day, we could be level 4, full of heart and compassion, or we could be rubbed the wrong way and be level 1 or 2. So with that, I want to suggest to you that whatever you find, whatever I explain, and if it resonates with you and you find it within yourself, the first, and if you want to change it, the first part of changing anything is accepting it. It's kind of like our dance floor. We have to have a foundation of acceptance in order to go forward and work towards changing anything or shifting anything. So then after you accept, you look at how you want to change, what you want to change it to, and at the end I will suggest my journaling techniques to help you get to a deeper level of what all of this means. In the meantime, I am going to again recommend you go to LauraBYoung.com/relax and download my relaxation tape to help you slow down in this time of distraction and overwhelm. Just get in touch with how to do it. In my tape, which is only 9 minutes, the audio is only 9 minutes, but even starting it and seeing that you can't finish it is revealing to you, and maybe the next time you do it, you can go a little longer. We're all having times of overwhelm here. So what are levels of consciousness? What does that mean? I'm going to give you an example that I used with a client last week, and she said it was helpful. So I hope it will be helpful to you. Let's look at this scene, this vignette. It's a very well-established, wealthy neighborhood. And a van comes in and lets out a group of prisoners to work on the street. They're wearing prison clothes, so they're easily identifiable as not being residents or regular workers. I want to give you an example of 4 residents on this street and how different levels of consciousness takes in the scene and experiences it at an inner level. Conscious level number 1, and I mean, don't get me wrong, there's a multitude of levels of consciousness. I'm just using these 4 to teach because these 4 I run into quite often with my clients, and the real extreme lower levels, no. The real extreme high levels, no. The high levels would be, Mother Teresa or Dalai Lama. way up there. But okay, number one is a woman inside of a beautiful house. She looks out the window. She sees prisoners, men in prison garb. She gets frightened, absolutely anxious and frightened about why are they here? What are they doing here? They shouldn't be here. And she picks up the phone to call the police because her fear, her life view is one of fearfulness and anxiety. And she has within herself a sense of helplessness, and she reaches out to call the police to take care of this fearful problem for her. Now, there's moments when we all are fearful and anxious and feeling helpless. But what I'm talking about here is if a particular level of consciousness is your usual go-to way of life. This woman has a usual go-to way of life. She internalizes fear, she sees danger outside, and she calls to somebody else to try and fix it for her. Now, we'll go to level 2. Level 2 consciousness is in my particular template today, level 2, is a man who is about to leave his house to go to his office, and he looks out at the prisoners working on the street, and he gets really angry. What are they doing here? They have no business being here. He refers to them as them, other, like almost like non-human. He's angry. He has a way of life that involves anger and fear. Usually fear is underneath a lot of anger and divisiveness. So this level of consciousness, unfortunately, is very pervasive in our society and world today. So examine that and see if you stay there any length of time in your life. Now we'll go to level 3. This person is more refined, more intellectual, and in some ways more removed from the emotional side of life. He looks at the prisoners. He doesn't get angry. He doesn't feel helpless. He doesn't feel threatened. But he muses if they are getting training in the prison to help them when they come out so they won't have to return to prison. He does have a higher level of interest and curiosity, and he's not labeling the prisoners them. He is sort of including them and wondering a little bit about their greater good. There's no heart in here, if you notice, though. There's no heart, but he stays in his head and he's intellectual. There are a lot of people in the world who fear emotions and fear being vulnerable and fear if they let down their guard that they'd be taken advantage of. And some people have trouble reaching their heart. And they think about love, but they don't know how to love. This man is sort of in that category. And there's a lot of people in this world on that level of consciousness. Now we go to the fourth door, and there's a man getting ready to leave to go to work for the day, and he looks out and he sees the prisoners, and he thinks, oh my, I wonder how they're being taken care of in the prison. I wonder if they're learning what they need to learn about life. it's really too bad they haven't had the breaks in the beginning of their life to help them have a better life. And then he reflects on his own teenage years, which were maybe a little bit wild, and he thinks, I was so fortunate. I had people there for me every threshold that I crossed. And it kept me out of trouble. And then he thought, well, there but for the grace of God go I. So do you feel the difference in this man's approach? He's not thinking of the prisoners as them. He's including them in possibilities that could have happened to him if he hadn't been more fortunate. There's compassion in his feelings for them, and there is some heart for himself, and gratitude, which of course is a heart opener, gratitude that he was more fortunate, and therefore he hopes the best for them who were not so fortunate. Okay, did you find yourself in either of those 4 levels of consciousness? Where do you stay most of the time? Do you want to shift it into a higher level of consciousness that is more inclusive, that is more loving, that is more trusting? First of all, you have to decide you want to. It doesn't happen passively. It starts with an intention. It starts with attention. It starts with action. It starts with determination, and then follow through. So if you don't know what your story really is, if you would stop now, maybe you have a few minutes to stop and reflect. Even in this time where we're all, quarantined, if we're with family members, there needs to be as little space you create for yourself, even within the family, to reflect. Use this time to reflect on your story. What is your story around level of consciousness? Are you in either of the 4 that I mentioned? Are you a mixture of the 4? Which one is the level of consciousness that you view the world in? Where do you go mostly when you view the world and the people in it? So what I'd like you to do is you take a little time to start to journal your story around your level of consciousness without judgment, but very truthfully. Be ruthless in your truth and don't fool yourself. Because I can be kind and compassionate, one day I can forget that, in the moment when a heavy-duty trucker pulls in front of me and causes me to be fearful in the moment. I may go from, 4 to 2 in that, but I don't stay there. It's kind of, your story is, where do you stay? And in order to journal around this and really get to know who you are and where you want to go and what you want to use this crisis for, because believe me, it will never be the same as before this crisis. We all have to change, and hopefully change for the better. What went on before this crisis will no longer be our normal. It never will be, and neither really should it be. I think this will provoke us to be more thoughtful, to be more kind, to be more inclusive. Now, getting to the journaling, in order for journaling to be deep level where you really get into knowing what your story is and giving yourself a total attention without judgment. It's really important to get relaxed. And if you have trouble getting relaxed, go to my LauraBYoung.com/relax and really learn how to do it for yourself now. And then come back to journaling. And then look at your storyline, because quite often our level of consciousness started to form in our families of origin long before the age of reason. And that's why I ask you why it's so important to get relaxed, because before the age of reason, we were in a slower merging energy. We weren't in beta energy, which is what we use when we think. We were in delta, theta, alpha, you name it, but we were not in thinking. We were not thinking beings, until the age of 7 or later. So part of it was faulty beliefs about the world that we merged with, that maybe were secondhand. Of course they were secondhand, they weren't ours, passed down to us by the family. That doesn't mean we can't change them. So that's why I'm asking you to go in and get brutally honest about your story. Then decide what aspects of it you're willing to change. Small changes are never small. Accumulatively, if you start this, it will expand. I mean, Carl Jung said the inner life is the last frontier. So what this gives you is your inner tapestry of richness, the places where we deny just to keep going in our frenetic energy of every day, trying to, create our list and meet whatever's on the list, and then at the end of the day may feel exhausted but unfulfilled. This is a time to very much get into that inner life that you have been poked and prodded to do by various means and people, and put it off until it's a good day, until Junior goes to college, until I lose 10 pounds, until I feel better about myself. Well, I'm here to tell you, today is the day. Go ahead and start. And with journaling, I do suggest pen and, notebook, pen and paper. It's more powerful than doing it on the computer. So part of what I want you to do is to kind of give yourself permission to know yourself at a very deep level, to know that you're worthy, to know that there's beauty in you you haven't even tapped yet. And now I'm going to read my favorite poem for this time and everything we're going through. Keeping Quiet by Pablo Neruda. Now we will count to 12, and we will all keep still. For once on the face of the earth, let's not speak in any language. Let's stop for a second and not move our arms so much. It would be an exotic moment, without rush, without engines. We would all be together in a sudden strangeness. Fishermen in the cold sea would not harm whales, and the man gathering salt would not look at his hurt hands. Those who prepare green wars, wars with gas, wars with fire, victories with no survivors, would put on clean clothes and walk about with their brothers in the shade, doing nothing. What I want should not be confused with total inactivity. Life is what it's all about. If we were not so single-minded about keeping our lives moving, and for once could do nothing Perhaps a huge silence might interrupt this sadness of never understanding ourselves and of threatening ourselves with death. And now I count up to 12, and you keep quiet, and I will go. All the best in the next week. Be kind to yourselves, and know this too shall pass. Bye now. See you next week.